So I want to also describe some of the research that we've done, and I'm describing it not to tell you about our research findings, but to give you a sense of the kinds of research projects that we have engaged in. And of course, I'm sure there are 1,000 other research opportunities that could emerge from this, but this is just to spark your thinking. So one of the goals that we have both with Citywide Dashboard and getting Dashboard into the public schools is to encourage people to engage in systems thinking, to see all of the interconnections. And so one study that we did, we hope that our technology is doing that, but we're also trying to do the research to prove that it is. So one study that we did, actually we've done 2 studies now, where people are exposed either to this citywide image or they're exposed to a control, and in the real world, that's the Pac-Man game, and it's animated, so they're seeing some kind of animation. They're seeing little lights move on the screen, but it's not this image. Both groups had the same information in terms of the gauges, but we think it's really the image that's more impactful. So students and adults were exposed to one of the 2 images, and then we measured a variety of things, and basically found that there are some fundamental psychological shifts in how people think about causality that result from looking at Citywide Dashboard. So that was one project that we did. We designed the empathetic gauge, and the whole idea there was to tap into people's emotional system, their moral system. We want them to see resource behaviors as moral behaviors. And so we did a field study where different dorms or different units were exposed to the boring gauge there on the left, or they got the exciting empathetic gauge on the right.
This isn't boring. This is actually really cool, but it's not empathetic.
I think it's horrifically boring. And so in that study, we measured psychological variables, but we also were looking at actual electricity use, and of course, both for very practical reasons, as well as theoretical reasons. If you have actual measures of behavior, that's really very exciting. So that was one study that we ran. Community Voices, we've done a large study, an online study using MTurk. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but it's an online platform for getting research participants, basically, very cheaply and very quickly. And we contrasted, people saw different versions of a Community Voices slideshow, and again, we measured a whole variety of things. And one of our goals was to evaluate whether or not exposure to Community Voices actually did create changes in people's commitment to environmental issues, their perceptions of norms, and there were lots of things that did not work in that study, but the overall message was that in fact Community Voices does have the effect that we want it to. It does increase people's perceptions of how many other people care about sustainability. People say that they're more committed. People say that they're more concerned. So that was another research paradigm. This is a technology, feedback technology, we're not really going to talk about, but it provides you, basically, it's an orb that glows different colors depending on how much resources you're using. Again, we did a field study where we randomly assigned different sections of buildings to either have the orb or not, and we tracked their electricity use. We also measured psychological variables so that we could try to see what predicted changes in electricity use. And then finally, we've done studies of the resource reduction competitions. And here again, it's a combination of looking at actual resource reduction, but also trying to measure what are the characteristics of dorms that did really well in the competition, what are the characteristics of dorms that did not. Can we learn from that and try to encourage the things that we know work.